Often when I was coming to God in prayer, I was presenting to Him my efforts, my righteousness. And I discovered inconsistencies. There was this kid in our church, Robert Fima. He used to pick up cigarette butts and smoke them. Man, that's something, I wouldn't even touch one of those things. And I could not understand why God would bless him. He also went to the Saturday matinees. And many times God would bless him more than I thought He was blessing me. And I was having difficulties understanding why God would bless Robert Fima more than He would bless me, when I knew he was sneaking around doing things that shouldn't be done. And I was trying to live such a pure life before the Lord. Now let me say, I don't resent the pure life. Not from a spiritual standpoint. That I've grown way beyond that. But just, it's just good to live a pure life. I thank the Lord that I have never in my entire life taken a cigarette to my lips. I've never smoked a cigarette in my entire life, never had a puff of a cigarette in my entire life. I've never had an alcoholic beverage in my entire life, and I'm glad for that. I know now that cigarettes can really cause you, well, they put signs in the restaurants, that now you go in the restaurants and this restaurant allows tobacco smoke and it's proven to be injurious to your health. And we know that alcohol burns brain cells, and so thank God I've probably lost enough through attrition, but I haven't lost any through alcohol. Think how bad I'd be, if I had that to add to what I've already lost. But these things, which may be a gain for me from a physical standpoint, are not any real gain for me from a spiritual standpoint. Because God blesses me and gives to me on the basis of His grace, not on the basis of my righteousness or my works. Through Jesus Christ, God has bestowed upon us grace upon grace. Now, what I have learned through this is, number one, to expect God to bless me, though more and more I realize I'm totally undeserving of those blessings. I know I'm not worthy. I know I don't deserve them, but I expect God to bless me anyhow. Because I'm not looking at my worthiness or my deservings. I'm looking to God, who has given to me grace upon grace. In the early years of my pastoring, still relating to God through the law, so to speak, not the law of Moses, but the laws that had been imposed upon me from childhood. The God blesses good boys and punishes bad boys. In the early years of my ministry, when we were living in Tucson, Arizona, there would be many times when I would take off and just go out into the desert down near the Santa Rita Range of mountains. with just a sleeping bag, jug of water, my Bible, and a notebook. And I would be out there fasting and praying and waiting upon God. Fasting and prayer. And I would get some of the greatest outlines. The Lord would really minister to me through the Word, and my heart would be really just overflowing. And I would come back for the Wednesday night Bible studies. I'd come in Wednesday afternoon, shave and shower and so forth. And as I would go out into the church, in my mind would run the thoughts, Lord, surely you're going to really bless tonight in a marvelous way because I've been fasting and praying all week. And so surely you're going to just really bless the people. This is going to be a super service tonight. I know because I've been fasting. And in a way it was saying, God, I've been good and now I'm expecting you to bless because I've been so good. Coming to God on the basis of my righteousness. From the fasting, I would be so weak that I'd have to hold on to the pulpit. I haven't been fasting now, but I mean, I'd have to hold on to the pulpit to maintain my balance. Now I have to hold on to it to maintain my balance just because I'm getting old and senile and feeble. But then it was because of fasting. And I couldn't concentrate. I'd be thinking of hot fudge sundaes. and I had the outline, the material was there, but there was just really no anointing to deliver it. It just went thud. And there are services when there is no anointing, and I'll tell you that's the toughest thing in the world. When you're talking, there's no anointing, you just go thump. And you feel nothing. It's just flat. And I think, I better get back out there, fast some more. This is bad. Head back out. Now, there would be other occasions. Living there in Tucson, and it's one of those main thoroughfares, going east, especially towards the south in Texas. And quite often we would have friends call up on their way to Texas or on their way back to California. And Wednesday afternoon, many times I'd said, well, I'll do my studying for the service this afternoon. I'd lay aside Wednesday afternoon for the study for the Wednesday night service. And they'd call up about noon and say, we just arrived in town, we're going to come on over. Oh, great, come on over. And they'd sit there all afternoon talking and visiting and everything and stay for dinner. And I hadn't had a chance to study, to look over the material, to get it all together. And I would be totally unprepared. I wouldn't even have an outline. And as I would go out into the church, I'd say, Lord, you're going to have to help me tonight. Lord, I'm awfully sorry about this. I was planning to say, but I couldn't be rude to the company. Lord, you're just going to have to help me tonight because, Lord, I'm just depending on you. Lord, I'm depending on you tonight. Now you're going to have to help me and come through, Lord. And those would be some of the most anointed messages. My mind would just be sparking with the anointing and with the inspiration of the Spirit. People would be blessed and touched. It would be a glorious meeting. And I couldn't quite figure it out. The more I fasted and the more I prayed, the flatter things seemed to be. And those times when I just had to trust in God seemed to come through and work fine. Now, I'm not at all trying to give anybody an excuse for not studying, because I definitely believe in study and preparation. But what I am saying is, don't trust in that for the blessing or the anointing. You see, don't look to yourself, but look to God always for the help, for the strength, for the anointing. I think that too many times we become so prepared that we don't feel that necessity of trusting God. I've got it all set. This is a tremendous outline, Lord. This is marvelous, and I won't need any help tonight. I'll be able to handle this one. And so this grace that I receive because of God's nature and not because of my righteousness or anything that I have done. So I expect God to bless me, though I realize I'm not deserving the blessings, because the blessings don't come upon me when I deserve them. That's not grace. I know that the lack of blessings is not due to the lack of my devotions, but to the lack of my faith. I've learned to stop making vows to God. Usually that is only trusting in my flesh, hoping that I will be better than I have been. The reason why you make a promise to God, because you haven't really lived up to what you should be living. So, Lord, I promise I'm going to do better. If you'll just do this for me, God, here's what I'm going to do for you. And I'm trying to give God a reason for loving me, a reason for blessing me in myself, even though that reason be a probably empty promise or an empty vow. I'm hoping that this promise or vow that I make to God will be the incentive for God to work in my life, so that, you see, I am worthy of it, I am deserving of it, because here, Lord, is what I'm going to do for you. If you'll just do this for me. And rather than coming to God on the basis of His grace towards me, so often I approach God on the basis of what I have done for God or what I will do for God in response to what God does for me. But in so doing, I am making the work of God in my life dependent upon me, my goodness, which then causes me to be prideful for my goodness. And say, well, if you just pray as much as I pray, God will bless you too. If you just do what I'm doing, and rather than seeing that it is God and His grace towards all of us that makes us the recipients of His goodness. I have discovered that God's grace cannot act where there is deserving, for then it's a matter of merit. So the moment I deserve it and God works and does something, that's not grace any longer. My flesh has no place in this plan of grace. I am not the source of the blessing. God is. And I have found then that the truest praise is that which rises spontaneously from my heart as I see God's goodness and grace bestowed upon me, and I realize how undeserving I am. When I look around and see what God has done, I say, oh, Lord, you're too much. Oh, I know I don't deserve it. Lord, I know I know. Lord, I just, I'm overwhelmed many times by the grace of God. I'm just wiped out by God's grace.